Howdy.
You're now
Today is April 26th, 2025,
live. Your first viewer has joined. Tribal Markers is watching.
and I'm in San Diego. So yesterday I had my last meeting with my current oncologist as he's moving on. He informed me um, from the hospital, and the good news is there's no news in that uh, there are three things that we're using to keep track of the cancer. Um, the uh, the blood work, the sticking a camera up my butt, and CT scans. 2 weeks ago, I did the CT scan,
Viewer has
and
left.
the
Currently no viewers.
CT scan was clear. The colonoscopy was clear, and we've scheduled another blood test for the beginning of June. The last blood test uh, was there's a marker called CEA. I'm not sure what it stands for, but it's the marker that they track this cancer with, but it has its flaws, primarily because it can be triggered by other things besides cancer. Um, and But anyway, the last time we checked that, which was about a month and a half ago, it was elevated. And they can only check it once every 3 months. So hence the early June blood test. I said to him basically, if there's no if if the next blood test isn't elevated, I don't know that we need to do another appointment in person at the hospital. So we left it at that. Um, Obviously, if it is elevated, then we've got we definitely need to have a face-to-face with whoever my next oncologist is going to be, um, sometime in June. So I'm feeling pretty good. In fact, the reason I'm in San Diego is because I'm at the glider port. Today is, I don't know if you can see, it's raining. um, for at least another hour and a half or so, and then it's supposed to get good around sunset. But it's going to be good for it should be good flying for the next couple of days. Um, so yeah, I'm in this place where it's up to me as to how I feel about what's going on, in terms of my level of concern. As I said before, I have a friend whose husband has the same thing as me. We started I think he was a week ahead of me, and she said his CEA levels have never been good. But we're both through it, so um, we'll it's kind of a wait and see. But I'm not waiting. I'm just gonna. In fact, the doctor's I told him I had started flying again, and he said his last words to me were, go fly, you know. So on doctor's orders, I'm gonna get back up into the sky, um, and fly as much as I can over the next rest of my life. So, um, and if the cancer comes back, it comes back. You know, if it's back already, it's back already. You know, there's nothing I can do about it at the moment. And in fact, if it is back, there isn't any, there's no treatment that I haven't already done. Except perhaps, you know, if it's in a position where it could be, you know, surgically removed. And then the question is, where is it? And, you know, is that going to mean me having to shit in a bag again? All things I have to sleep on or sleep with.
Viewer has left. Currently no viewers.
And so that's you know, where I'm at. If it sounds like it's in a kind of a limbo-ish place, then that's kind of where it is. Sorry that there's, you know, it's not more definitive, but that's life with cancer, right? Or without cancer, not even knowing if you have it or not, you know?
Ellen is watching.
So, this voice you keep hearing are these friggin' glasses. I have these, this is a new edition here. So, let's
Press the capture button to
Let's
switch to your
see.
glasses camera.
do this.
Now live from your glasses.
Ta-da! Pretty crazy, huh? This is what I shot those, the flying videos. And I haven't used the AI aspect of this thing, which makes it hands-free and you can just tell it what to do and all this sort of stuff. I haven't used any kind of AI technology yet. In part because I'm working on writing a book about the expansion of the Earth's subtle energy field that I've been studying for the past 5 years. And I'd rather do all that without AI looking over my shoulder than and then afterwards I have several of my books that have, you know, I've already published that I'd like to see what AI can do in terms of helping to make them into films. So I'm looking forward to that. But in the meantime, I've got some pretty incredible news about this survey of the subtle energy field. So I was here. I came to the glider port on April 11th. On April 10th, I was in Venice Beach and at the Venice Breakwater, and I measured the there's a node there. There's a node at the Venice Breakwater that is shaped like an asterisk, and that there are 3 lines that cross one another. And I was aware of that node being there because in 2020, when I was undergoing the cancer treatments for the first time, my friend and colleague in this survey, Rory McQuestion, also known as Rory Duff, Google him. He's the British geologist that I've been working with since 2000. 1999 was when we met in England. um, he came to visit. He was in L.A. and we met up on the boardwalk, and we walked out to the Venice breakwater because I told him that's where I felt that the power spot of Venice was, and because for as long as I've been coming to Venice since 1989, I've always been drawn to it, to that spot, and it's usually where I go to do my little headstandy thing on the daily, and he confirmed he had his dowsing rod with him, and he confirmed exactly where the node was. And back at that time, and for thousands of years, as far back as anybody could tell, those sorts of lines, which those ones are made by the core of the Earth rotating against its outer core, creates this ultra low frequency sound structure that radiates to the surface as this whole matrix of lines. And those lines were between 1 and 5 paces, the ones that are generated by the Earth. There's 2 other matrices of lines, the ones that are created by the cosmic radiation coming from the sun, and those at that time were 10 to 30 paces wide. And the ones that are created by the cosmic radiation coming from nearby galaxies were at that time 50 paces wide. And what I've documented is the expansion of the ones that are created by the matrix of lines that are created by galaxies, expanding to cover the planet over the past 4 or 5 years, and merging together as one sound structure radiating from the acoustic center of the planet. And it would appear that same phenomenon is beginning to happen with the Earth-generated line. So on April 10th, I measured those lines, and they were, remember back in 2020 when Rory measured them, they were 5 paces wide. When I measured them on April 10th, they were 55 paces wide. 5 paces more than the Emperor Dragons were back in 2020. The Emperor Dragons are what we call the galactic, subtle energy lines, the ultra low frequency sound structures that are created at the acoustic center of the planet and radiate to the surface, that are caused by cosmic radiation reaching the upper atmosphere and creating these neutrino streams that at the center of the planet, they enough neutrinos collide that make these sound structures. So on the 10th of July, they were 55 paces wide. The ones that are generated by the Earth, the lines that cross at the Venice breakwater. So I was here. I flew on the 12th and the 13th, and then I tweaked my knee and thwanked my 2 toes, middle toes, and I actually had to go pick up new lenses for these glasses. So what ended up happening is I drove back up to Venice and picked up the lenses, and I went out to the breakwater, and I started to measure again, and to my surprise, this was what date was that? Anyway, it was they had doubled in it was the 19th. So in 9 days they were 110 to 125 paces wide, which I thought was friggin' amazing. Until the next day when I measured them again, and they were over 200 paces wide. so they doubled again. And then, they'd gone up to 150, so they'd tripled their size. They'd gone to 150, and then the next day it was the same story. The next day it was 281 paces wide. Then it went to 600, over 600 paces wide, 671 paces wide, something like that. And then the day after that, they were they had grown to over 2,454 paces wide, almost a mile wide. And however wide the lines are, that means the node is as wide as the lines where they are all crossed. Now these nodes, what's interesting about them, what's really fascinating about them, is they are a unique energetic structure. They're circular. They are something like what's known as a tube torus, like a giant bagel shape. And so imagine a giant bagel of energy that is a mile in diameter. That was the day before yesterday. And then I had to I left LA. So it looks like it may sound very chaotic and everything, but that progression is very similar to what I documented happened to the emperor dragons as they began their expansion, starting in 2020. And I documented it up to the autumnal equinox period of 2022. So this whole I guess what I'm trying to say here is that the subtle energy field of the planet is now consolidating into this completely new structure that has never happened before as long as humans have been alive on this planet. We assume that Homo sapiens evolved sometime around between 200 and 400,000 years ago. And one of the reasons why this expansion is happening has to do with the orbit of the solar system around the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And it takes about 230 to 250 million years for it to make one orbit. And every time in every orbit, it goes above and below, like a sine wave, the central plane of the galaxy. And it takes about 30 million years for it to do this, to just do one of those arcs. And about 10 million years for it to cross the central plane of the galaxy. And there's so much stuff between us and the center of the Milky Way galaxy that you can't actually see the center of the Milky Way galaxy visually. The only way that we've been able to observe it, the center of the galaxy, is is in the infrared spectrum. And so what's happened is that the solar system has reached a place where it's just above, most recently, just in the past several decades, it's reached a place that's just above, that's just clear of the central plane of the Milky Way galaxy, so that radiation is able, cosmic radiation is able to reach us in enough of a quantity to for an emperor dragon line that's caused by the center of the Milky Way galaxy to appear on the Earth. And it just so happens that line, that phenomenon, is the emperor dragon that I first started to measure back in 2019. And up until 2017, there were only 3 pairs of emperor dragon lines on the planet. And between 2017 and 2019, 3 more pairs appeared. And the last one was the one that I measured up in Big Sur, if you're at all familiar or have been following my work at all. So what I've been observing is that the emperor dragons have merged. As I said, I documented their expansion from 2020 till 2022, and they would expand during this period that Rory dubbed the harmony period, because when he first started to measure this stuff, he realized that first started his survey back in 2000, between 2008 and 2010, and what he observed is that these 3 types of lines, the ones that are caused by the Earth, the ones that are caused by the Sun, and the ones that are caused by galaxies, are all they all vibrated at a different frequency, but they're all ultra low frequency sound waves, sound structures. The ones that are caused by the Earth, they would have a side-to-side motion of either 5 hours one way and 5 hours back, thus a frequency of 10 hours, or 16, meaning that they would move, 8 hours to the right and then move back 8 hours to the left, and that would be, a 16-hour frequency. So those are the ones that are caused by the Earth, and those are the ones that are the sort of lines that are in Venice Beach. The solar lines, the ones that are caused by the cosmic radiation coming from the sun, they had a frequency of 24 to 36 hours. The Emperor Dragon lines, they had a frequency, at least the 3 that existed before 2017, they had a frequency of 48 hours. And what Rory observed back in 2008 was that the Emperor Dragons would speed up during the solstices and equinoxes, and the Earth-generated ones would slow down, and they would all meet at the frequency of the solar lines at 24 hours. And they would stay together and all vibrate at the same frequency for, initially, when he first started checking it, they would all start to vibrate at the same frequency for the solstice or the equinox, and not even the whole day. Initially, it was like 16 hours, and then it's that the harmony period started to expand. So then it was by 2012, I think it was like 3 days. By 2017, it was like 5 days that they would all vibrate at the same frequency for 5 days. And then it would only take about 20 minutes and they would just break up. When I started, the first time I ever dowsed was the node up in Big Sur that's made of one of the Emperor Dragon pairs and 2 solar lines crossing on the top of this mountain in Big Sur. And when I first started doing it, the harmony period was 6 days. By 2022, the harmony period was 3 weeks. And Rory predicted at that time that by the winter solstice of 2024, that the harmony period would extend from the solstice to the equinox of 2025, the vernal equinox of 2025. And I'm here to report to you that's happened. And what that means is that all of the ley lines on the planet are now vibrating at the same frequency. What frequency is that, you might ask? Okay, so the emperor dragons, as I said, the 3 that existed before 2017 and for thousands of years, those had a frequency of 48 hours. 2 of the 3 that appeared between 2017 and 2019 had a frequency of 48 hours. The last one, which the one we call the 6th ED, or the 6th Emperor Dragon, the last one to appear in 2019, which happens to be the one that I first started to douse in 2019. That one has a frequency of 72 hours. And so when those 3 new Emperor Dragon pairs showed up, what ended up happening is that instead of the Emperor Dragon speeding up at the solstices and equinoxes and the Earth-generated ones slowing down and then both meeting at the frequency of the solar ones, of the solar nodes, solar lines, they all started to vibrate at the lowest frequency, at the 72-hour frequency for, whatever the harmony period, however long the harmony period lasted. Now that the harmony period is year-round, 24/7, all of the ley lines on the planet and that ultra-low frequency band has...
Double press the capture button to switch to your glasses camera.
Thanks. All of the ley lines on the planet are now, and structures, sound structures in those frequency bands are all vibrating at the frequency of what was the 6th ED at 72 hours. What does this mean? It means a couple of things. One thing is that all of this is another thing that Rory observed when he first started his survey back in 2008, was that during the harmony period, these nodes create these, wherever the ley lines cross one another, if they're symmetrical, if there's a symmetrical number of lines that cross at those places, then it creates a portal of sorts. This what do you call it? Tube torus shaped structure, a vortex, if you will, an energy vortex. The ancients say that these vortices are interdimensional portals. That the veil is thinner in them than outside of them, and that's kind of what the basis of their celebration of solstices and equinoxes was all about, because that meant that the veil between the dimensional planes was thinner, and it was easier to communicate between those dimensional planes with the ancestors. By ancestors, I mean, us, right? Our soul reality, our spiritual reality, where we come from, where we go to. So saying all that to say that what all of this I'm telling you about now is, and what I'm trying to write up, it means is that all of these portals are open now, 24/7, 365, and as far as we can tell, as far as I can tell, going forward, it's going to be like that for the next, 20 to 30 million years. And so I guess, this is kind of an announcement that that I, like you, am a witness to a cosmic event. We are all witnessing this cosmic event. And if you want to know, what does it all mean? Look at the news. Right? More turmoil than we've all ever known. Not just in America, but globally. Because this is a global grid, right?
You got a comment. Tap and hold your glasses for number of viewers and most viewers.
So what I'm suggesting is that 8.2 billion souls are incarnate at this moment. And every one of them is on a spiritual mission. Every one of us is on a deeply personal spiritual mission. And at the same time, we are one soul group that volunteered to incarnate on the earth at this time to witness this event and to live this event. Where is it going? Once again, it gets back to it's speculation at this point, but we can draw some conclusions from what the ancients tell us about this sort of energy. And the energy potential that we're looking at is exponentially more powerful than ever before. So like I was saying, even on the 10th of April, the Venice node, when they were 55 paces wide, that was more powerful than the most powerful Emperor Dragon line on the planet before 2017, before 2019, excuse me. And so to give you an idea of the sort of energy we're talking about, I use this example often because I think it's the most illustrative. Before 2017, there were, as I said, there were 3 Emperor Dragon pairs on the planet, and there were only 6 places on the planet where they crossed one another, and only 4 of those places were on land. And one of those places is this place in the Himalayas, Mount Kailash. And now remember, this is when the Emperor Dragons were only 50 paces wide. That mountain is sacred to the 5 religions that have grown up around it, for as far back as anybody can remember. And at this very moment, there are people doing what their ancestors have done at that mountain. They make a pilgrimage to the mountain, and they prostrate themselves completely around the mountain. That means that they lay themselves face down, flat, arms and legs spread. They stand up, take a step, and do the whole thing all over again, all the way around this mountain. And that was when the node was only 50 paces wide. Just to give you an idea of this sort of energy. Somebody, R. Mandu, has asked, where can we read up on ley lines and Earth energetic grid? Any recommendations? Um, so, self-plug. I've written a book. I've published a book on 2 books, actually, on the subject. But I also recommend that you, as I said earlier, that you check out Rory Duff. He's the British geologist that I've been working with for 25 years now on this project. And but you're not going to find any of this, what I'm telling you about, you're not going to find it in any literature anywhere. Because, as I said, we've been doing this survey. I've been doing this survey for the past 5 years. This event that I just measured, this week, nobody knows about it. Just him and me. I've been sending him my data. And we haven't even had a chance to talk about it because it's so startling. The fact that it started to expand. Just in the past, less than a month, right? To go from, 55 paces wide to a mile wide. I mean, that's just, I would say it's unprecedented, except this is the same thing that happened between 2020 and 2022 with the Emperor Dragon lines. So I know, and I was right there. I followed it when it went from, it started at about 135 miles wide till it covered most of North America in a month. So I'm familiar, and I measured it every day, and sometimes several times a day. There was one time towards the end of that month, I was doing like 6 or 8 measurements a day because it was moving so fast. But and then at the end, October 8th of 2022, it just stopped moving, much to my surprise. But the reason why it stopped moving was because there was something about the solstices and equinoxes that it was grounded by. But now there's the harmony period extends from solstice to equinox. And what I've observed is that now this expansion, there's nothing to stop it. There's nothing to stop it from expanding. And at each of the solstices and equinoxes, I would venture that the whole system is just going to get exponentially more pumped, full of energy. If not daily. So moment by moment, the whole thing is just getting more and more pumped, full of energy. Because as far as I can see, there's nothing to stop it from expanding. There's nothing to stop it from merging. And once the Earth-generated lines, the solar-generated lines, and the Emperor Dragon lines all merge, all that's going to be left of the subtle energy grid are the nodes, are these points that we've known and that the ancients knew about, that where all the ley lines used to cross one another. Because it's important to remember that these lines they're not lines. They're energetic structures. They're sound structures that are emanating from the acoustic center of the planet. Wow, super exciting. I know you have some books on Amazon, right? Yep. Probably Earth expanding to accommodate new incarnating souls, 8.2 billion heading for 9 billion. Yeah. I think that this gets into, thanks for putting that in there. This gets into, where is this going? Because this isn't some accident, this has been brewing for thousands of years. It helps me to remember that not only is the Earth a conscious entity, but the solar system is a conscious entity, the galaxies are conscious entities, right? the Earth is evolving. It has a life cycle of 10 billion years. The solar system has a life cycle of 10 billion years. The Earth is going to, if it stays in this orbit, it's going to get swallowed up in another 2 to 3 billion years. But, you know, it's possible that we could move it further out. So once you realize what we're talking about, I mean, the essence of it all has to do with consciousness, right? The expansion of consciousness into the physical reality. And, you know, that each one of us as a conscious being are here by choice and design. You know, that we you know, not, this is, all of this isn't just happening to us. We've agreed to be here for this. We've agreed to take part in this whole project, right? So what we're witnessing is that the planet has now, it's now receiving, it's kind of just woken up, right? And it's continuing to wake up, the planet itself as a consciousness. And what I've been observing and measuring and everything is this vibration, the vibration of the 72 hours. That all of the, you know, the whole subtle energy system of the planet is now vibrating at 72, the frequency of 72 hours, right? That's never happened before. It's never happened before. But now there is this vibration that is permeating everything. That means that wherever you are, wherever anybody, every spot on the planet has this energy, this sound structure energy vibrating up through the Earth. There isn't one spot on the Earth that isn't receiving this energy at this frequency that didn't exist, you know, 7 years ago or a dozen years ago, right? Because these emperor dragons were vibrating at a 48-hour frequency, the ones that existed on the planet at that time. It wasn't until the 6D showed up here that they started to vibrate at that frequency. And now they've all merged into this one structure. And now the not just the emperor dragons are vibrating at that frequency, but now it appears that all of the ley lines on the planet are vibrating at that frequency. Which I have to tell you is pretty friggin' amazing. I started measuring day before yesterday. I knew it was going to be huge. You know, I didn't know that it was going to expand to a mile. I thought it would be like a half mile by the end of the day. So I started measuring, and when I got back to where I started, like 2.5 hours later, it had moved 20 yards, right? Because at that point it was a mile wide. And these are Earth-generated lines. They were a mile, pretty much, you know, 9.55, you know, of a mile. You know, it's like, or excuse me, 0.955, and of a mile. And I just, I know how this goes. It goes to it. Even if it just kept doubling at that pace, which is not, it moves exponentially, right? It expands exponentially, which means it's not just an even, you know, it doesn't just expand from mile to 2 miles to 4 miles and so forth like that. No, it goes from, because at one point it went, it was 295, and then the next day it was 681, right? So you would expect it to be 600, but because it's exponential, it's going to do more. You know, and this is exactly what happened with the expansion of the emperor dragons. So I should probably try to keep an eye on what you're saying here. Right. Okay. Right. So the population. Yeah, where the population is moving towards 9 billion. I don't think it will reach at any point more than 11 billion. It's already starting it's slowing down. It's been slowing down since the 70s, actually. So this brings me back to, like, what does it mean, and how is it going to manifest in human affairs? The answer to that is, you can see already, those of us that are old enough can tell, like, the day I was born, there were 2.8 billion souls incarnate. And that's, right now, that is the population of China and India together, combined. 2.8 billion. So what I see happening, you can see that the generations that are coming in right now are just more sensitive to energy. A perfect example I like to use is how my generation, the people that were born in the 50s and 60s and so forth, they're the ones that have a problem with the whole gender thing, right? That the LBG, the alphabet people, right? They're like, there's only two sexes and all, whatever. But the younger people, the people that are the generations that are, less than 40 years old, they don't have a problem with it. It's a duh to them, right? And another example I use is who are the people? What's the demographic of the people that most objected to what's happening in Gaza, but these new generations? And the reason is because they cannot stand the suffering of others. They cannot stand, they're more sensitive to the suffering of others because they're plugged into the earth grid, right? They're plugged into the field of the planet. And this is only going to become more so. Whereas my generation and the people that are older than me, that we got used to a certain level of suffering going on in the world. We lived through Vietnam, and we lived in America during Vietnam as though, it was on television. There's war on television. People, tens of thousands of people suffering on the daily, people being killed, maimed, and murdered. And notice that we had a certain tolerance, and our ancestors had a certain tolerance to suffering, right? These new generations, they can't stand it because they feel it. Not just on a intellectual level, but on a very, very physical, empathetic level. So their capacity for empathy is greater than the generations before us. And this is only going to become more so because where this is heading, as far as my intuition is showing me, is into a place where telepathy, to the things like telepathy, and I would not even be surprised if we're looking at a world where people are able to levitate. Call me nutcase, but I think what this means is that there is now an energy that's present, that's omnipresent on the surface of the planet that didn't exist there before, and it's up to that this energy can be tapped into, marshaled, focused by the individual, by each individual soul. This energy did not exist, 10 years ago, but now it's everywhere. There isn't any place that it isn't on the surface of the earth. And these energies, the whole biosphere evolved in the presence of these energies, just not at this level of intensity. And as I said, the intensity is only going to build and be building for the next 30 million years. So whoever is inhabiting this biosphere is going to exist from this point on, experiencing this level of the energy, of this energy. It's at least this, if not more so. And I feel like it's obvious to me, at least, that to say that we live in unprecedented times is an understatement. The generation that I represent, and that the generations that are before me, they were, we've done our bit to the point where, we've inherited these certain frequencies of fear that got us to this place. But, moving forward, fear is antithetical to this system. It is inevitable that whatever species continue to evolve on this planet cannot be fear motivated, because it's antithetical to the maximizing the potential of this energy. So, and as I said, I mean, you can just see that the children that are being born now they're born psychic. They're being born psychically aware. So imagine what it's going to be like in 30 years or a century from now. So I haven't been reading whatever you've been saying, so let me go back probably. Souls on the other side, before they incarnated, were acclimating to the energy of the new age of open-mindedness. The older folks, but interesting to think about how that informs the divisions in the world today. I feel like there's no mistake about the fact that a third of the population is living in fear and subscribing to the idea, wanting to go back, right? All these, the authoritarians that came in 2016 are a reflection of all of those. What they're offering is, trying to take people back. There's no going back. There's no back to go to. But those, that 1/3 of the population, they're manifesting. They're a manifestation of that. They're holding those frequencies of fear, and those, in order for those frequencies to be dispelled. And that's our job. That's what the other 2/3 of the population are here to do, is to help dispel. That's what we're all trying to do, is dispel these frequencies of fear and put it away for good. That's how I see it. It's at this point, it's kind of up to the people that are on the fence. The people that are supporting those frequencies of fear. On one day, and on the next day, they're feeling like, more optimistic, and that they want to, they want everything to work out. But it's a done deal. There's no avoiding what's happening, and we're gonna. This is why I'm optimistic, no matter what the news has to say, corporate media and so forth. Whatever it has to say, it doesn't have anything. It can't touch, and there's nothing that anyone can do. I mean, all the people are going to freak out about HARP and all this sort of shit. It has no effect on this change, because even we're talking 30 million years here, folks. Of ever, moment by moment, ever increasing energy, right? We got nothing. We got nothing to stop this from happening. There's no breaks. There's no. I feel just really blessed to be, as I said, a witness to this change, to this transition. And And I guess at this point, I'm, I and Rory, are the, we're the ones saying, hey, everybody, this thing happened. It's kind of monumental. But whether, obviously, the vast majority of the population of the world has no fucking idea that this has happened. And some folks may never know that this has happened. But you do, because I just told you, so tag somebody, let other people know, heads up, but this is why I'm optimistic about no matter what is going on in the news. I've seen where we're going. I've seen where we're headed, and I don't have all the answers as to how we're going to get there, how we arrive there, but I know that we're we're headed in a really good direction, even in spite of all those that want to assume that the world's coming apart and in a negative way. The world is definitely coming apart, but it's in a positive way. It may be ugly right now. It may look, it does feel really ugly. But what we're talking about, the reason why it looks that way is because people are trying to hold on to the past. And it's like, trying to hold on to the earth as a tidal wave is coming, good luck with that, So, all right, let me try to read what wasn't there for the other folks, but interesting to think about how that forms divisions. Right, okay. Yeah. So, I feel like I certainly have my work cut out for me in trying to write all this down. I've been practicing in trying to explain it, but it's a good thing I didn't write it down before this past week, because I didn't foresee the Earth grid expanding and merging and joining the galactic and solar grids. But that's a pretty fitting end to the whole survey, I've got to say. So if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to contact me. And I'm trying to develop a oral presentation, kind of like an extended TED talk on this whole thing. And this turned into an what do you call it, a trial run of sorts, to go along with what I'm trying to write in book form. Not that anybody reads books anymore, but it's always good to get it all down. Anyway, I've got a lot of the data, the direct, daily logs of measurements and stuff that you can just look at the numbers and that you can see the patterns, and it's pretty obvious that of what's happening, So, love and light, love and light. Thanks for watching. Thanks for paying attention. So I'm going to be here for a bit, and I'm going to hopefully get some flying in, maybe today, and then some soaking in a couple of weeks, and get on with my life. Thanks to everyone that's contributed to my continued existence on this planet through the 3 cancer stories and the 40-foot fall and Like I said, I'm sorry that I don't have more definitive information about where the cancer's at, other than to say that two of the three things are clear, and one of them we'll have more of a picture of it in the beginning of June at that next blood test. So between now and then, I'm going to pretend like I'm going to keep living. I'm going to fly as much as I can and stay as present as I can. So, love and light.